Battleships are one of the most popular class of ships in game, and you can see why. They're huge armored ships bristling with guns. They look cool. The big guns are really just awe-inspiring, right, in real life and in game. So many a player do begin their Warships journey there. Now, with all the battleships in game, there's still one line in particular that I do recommend new players go down, and that is the American Battleship tech line. More exactly, the Montana line. But even within that line, there's one ship that stands out amongst the rest as just an amazing battleship, and that is the Iowa, the Tier 9 Tech Line American Battleship, one of the three Tier 9 American Tech Line battleships, because we have the Vermont line, the Montana line, and then the Louisiana line now. But the Iowa, she is amongst the oldest ships in game, fellas. And she is still quite a powerhouse of a battleship. And it's really impressive just because, I mean, again, this ship is 8 years old. That's kind of crazy. If you look at some of the other tech lines, they have not really aged that well. The Japanese heavy cruiser line is always a good example of ships that have most definitely been power crept by the direction that the game has gone in. But the Iowa, she is not only such a good ship, but she's also one of my personal favorite tech line battleships. Probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, tech line battleship. And she was the ship that I set out to acquire when I started playing World Warships all those years ago. And we haven't talked about her in a couple of years, so we're going to discuss her today, talk about what makes her so good in today's World of Warships, and why you should, if you haven't already, grinded this ship out. So, the Iowa, she is, again, the Tier 9 Tech Line American Battleship. If you're going down the Montana line, you get her after you get the North Carolina. North Carolina also, by the way, is an excellent Tier 8 Tech Line ship. The American Tech Line, the main line, really starts to shine when you get to the North Carolina. You just get three excellent ships back to back to back: the North Carolina, the Iowa, and then of course the Montana. But we're talking about the Iowa in today's video. So the Iowa is armed with 9 16-inch guns, 406 millimeter guns, the same caliber, well, the same size, I should say, as the previous ship, the North Carolina, but the guns are of a different caliber. She has a 50 caliber gun instead of the 45 caliber gun that you'll find on the North Carolina, which means that the barrels are slightly longer. Longer barrels lead to, well, a faster speed for the shells. Unlike the North Carolina shells that are just falling out of the barrels at, I believe, 702 meters a second, the Iowa shells are zipping out at 762 meters a second. Now, that may not sound like a huge difference in velocity, but trust me, when you're engaging at ranges, it really starts to show. So that means at range, the Iowa's guns are a little bit more comfortable to aim than the North Carolina guns. Now, by the time you get to the Iowa after going through the North Carolina, you should be pretty acclimated to the oddities of the American battleship shells. They're slow, they do have very high arcs, so shooting at range is a bit of a challenge, but again, it's a little bit easier here with the Iowa. But those arcs can also be very advantageous to you, as you can see in the background footage here. At the beginning of the match, I was able to actually park behind an island and play like a really big Des Moines while I'm still able to get my three 16-inch turrets off over this island and absolutely do some real damage to the enemy team. So that can be advantageous at medium range. Now, on top of the ballistics and the shell arcs, you also get the wonderful American Mark 8 Super Heavy AP shell, which gives the 16-inch guns of the Iowa a pretty hefty alpha rating of 13,500. If you go look at some other 16-inch gun battleships, which, by the way, most of the other 16-inch gun battleships in this game aren't 406 millimeters, they're like 419 or 410 millimeters. So the shell is actually bigger, but the Iowa with the smaller 16-inch gun still has the higher damage, alpha damage rating at 13,500. And again, if you look at the alpha rating, it's still like 13,000 and change. So you might be saying, well, 500 more damage isn't really that much. Well, when you have 9 guns and it's 500 more damage per shell, that really starts to add up. It's almost 5,000 more damage per salvo. So it really is something special there. So you have very hard-hitting 16-inch guns with an excellent alpha rating that's very comfortable to shoot at medium range thanks to the longer barrels on the Iowa. And, I mean, like, yeah, at longer ranges, it does definitely struggle to hit unless you're very, very good at sniping with the American guns. But really, the Iowa with these guns is best played from, like, 17-ish kilometers in, as is most of the American battleships, because of, again, the same thing. But, I mean, like, from 17 kilometers in, the ship is quite fearsome, because these excellent guns are bolted onto an amazing battleship hull. The Iowa hull is, well, fast for one. With the speed flag and the upgraded engine, you can go 34 knots and change, which is just ridiculous for a ship of this size. Now, of course, in today's World of Warships, we have had more battleships introduced and battle cruisers that are faster than that, but still, for the armor that you get on the Iowa, it's a pretty zippy boat. So you have a fast hull that's pretty well armored, and yeah, it's not like Kremlin well armored, right? But your citadel is fairly low. You can still get citadeled fairly easy in the Iowa, so you don't want to be sitting flat broadside. So many Iowa players make that mistake. I think it's because, especially in the North American server, right? So many players are from the United States. They want to get to the Iowa because it's the battleship, right? And you get to it, you sail broadside, and you get wrecked. Don't do that. Stay angled as much as possible. The turret angles are fairly forgiving on the ship. You have 38-degree rear turret angles and 32-degree forward turret angles, so especially from the rear, like a kiting out position, she is very, very comfortable, and with that speed, you're able to dictate the terms of your engagement quite a lot. So, again, very comfortable, fast ship there. Combine that with the armor, very, very well protected for what she is with her speed. Now, with that, I'm not saying go run away and play the ship at 19 kilometers plus. No, don't do that. Another thing that allows her to be very comfortable is her concealment. With the concealment module and the commander skill, you have a 12.7 kilometer concealment on this ship, which is absolutely ludicrous for a ship of this size. Like, the Iowa is not small. I've been to one in real life, the Wisconsin. It's a big boat. But in game, 12.7 kilometer concealment. So you have a fast, relatively tanky battleship with excellent guns that's fairly stealthy. So you can, with your speed and your concealment, run away if things are not looking too good for you, like I do here. But at the same time, too, you don't have to run to 18, 19 kilometers away from your target. You can keep them within that comfortable 16, 17 kilometer detection range, unless, of course, you do have a destroyer that's pushing up to spot you. Then, of course, that's a different ball game. But using your speed and your concealment, you can pick and choose your fights quite often with the Iowa, which is very, very excellent. Now, the Iowa also has decent HE shells, so that is the thing about the guns. She does have 16-inch guns at tier 9. Which is pretty good, but of course you can't really overmatch too much. You can get through, like if you are top tier, you can get through 28 millimeters of armor. So if you're lucky enough and get in a top tier game, like the background footage right here, when you see tier 7 battleships, you don't really have to care about their armor because of that. But of course, in reality, you are going to be in a lot of tier 10 and super ship games with the Iowa. So if you do need to load HE, don't really feel bad about doing that because it's pretty decent HE. The alpha rating is 5700. You have a 36% fire chance. So if you can't overmatch or get through the ship that you're targeting's armor, don't feel bad about loading HE and burning them down. Also, of course, when destroyers are abound, definitely you want to use HE if that is, well, needed, which it will be when there are destroyers around. Now, one of the best things about not only the Iowa but the upper tier American battleships is that you can equip the special American Plotting Room Mod 2 module, which gives you an 11% buff to your dispersion. 11%, which is better than the traditional 7% that you get out of the aiming systems mod. So, couple that with the American dispersion ellipse, which is a pretty consistent dispersion ellipse, you have some very, very consistent guns on the Iowa. Now, again, like is with any ship in this game, it is completely possible for RNG to just take your shells and kind of disperse them wherever. But from my experience with the dispersion module equipped, the Iowa, well, not only the Iowa, but the Missouri and, well, the Wisconsin is, of course, she has a higher sigma than the Iowa. the Iowa class guns are pretty consistent with that module equipped. The Iowa herself does have 1.9 Sigma, which is pretty good. It's no 2.0 Sigma, but I mean 1.9 is definitely not bad. So you take that and you couple it with that dispersion module, you have some really consistent guns on your hands here. So take all of that, put that in this package together, and you have a really, really good battleship that, again, has managed to keep up with the times and really not be too affected by the meta. She can be an excellent mid-range battleship. Angled, she can tank for quite some time, especially with her improved American Battleship Hill. If you don't know, the American battleships get the improved Battleship Hill that regens more HP per second than you would find on similar tiered battleships. As you can see, when I do have to use it, I reheal a very large portion of the ship's HP. So, if you know how to play the ship, use the speed and stealth to your advantage, and when you are exposed, make sure you're angled, and you can run away when you need to, heal up, and go back in for more action. The ship is also quite good at closer-ish range. Is she, an amazing brawler? No. But with her speed, at close range, that is a pretty useful tool when you need to rush somebody, get to their side, blap them, and then sell off into the distance. She does have a big turning circle radius, of course, because of her size. So definitely don't be trying to be a super maneuverable battleship by any stretch of the imagination. But she has a 920 meter turning circle radius. That's not terrible for her size, and apparently in real life, she was actually fairly nimble, and she could turn within her own length, which, that's pretty impressive, and that's kind of reflective here in game with her relatively small turning circle for her size. But again, it's still a big turning circle, right? So don't go and try to literally run circles around other ships. It won't really go that well for you. Then you wind up exposing your citadel and getting black. But yeah, she's a ship that is just absolutely an amazing ship still in today's World of Warships, and one that if you haven't grinded her out yet, I would highly encourage you to. She's a free ship after all, right? She's a tech line ship, and if you do have Halsey, amazing match for the Iowa. Getting Confederate is not really hard in an Iowa at all, so you'll be popping his skill relatively consistently, and of course that just gives you an even bigger boost to the reload time of your guns and such. So guys, that's my 2 cents on the Iowa. Again, we haven't talked about her in a couple of years. If you haven't gotten her yet, what are you doing? Go out, grind yourself an Iowa, get yourself an amazing Tier 9 battleship, and then you get a Montana, which is still a very good Tier 10 battleship at the end of the day. So guys, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think about the Iowa in today's World of Warships in the comments down below. If you did enjoy it, be sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 60,000 subs. We're getting very close to that goal, and we will be doing a giveaway when we get there. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday and wonderful weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.